There was a time in this storied nation just after Brown versus Board of Education, facing hateful discrimination and Jim Crow segregation, the people still denied an equal education.
Demands are non-negotiable.
Fast forward the clock, decades later. The stakes in America, considerably greater. Black and brown students off to college to soar and speak for themselves, not be spoken for.
Our humanity is worth fighting for, and that's what we're saying in this moment, that we're worth fighting for.
For half of a century, black people have systematically and programmatically been miseducated by the most political institution in this country, the institution of education.
The needs of the black students were absolutely inconsequential, and in point of fact, they were seen as not to exist. You were a troublemaker to raise the issue.
We are trying to alter the destiny of higher education in this country. And I feel it's about time that the power structure in this country come to grips with the changing order of the time.
Basic question is, can the white universities expand their framework to accommodate blacks in terms defined by blacks?
Parisian students had gone on strike. Czechoslovakian students had gone out on strike. Mexican students had been murdered. We saw ourselves at an early stage from the 60s begin to see ourselves more and more as part of our struggle as an international struggle.
I remember calling my mother and she said, "Jackie, I know you're not in that building." And I remember saying, yes I am, Ma.
We were all angered. We were all ready to do something.
It was a do or die moment for us. How far do we go? How do we approach it? When do we stop?
It wasn't just civil discord, but a new sense of people seeking to be actors in their own lives, real agents of change. I went to Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, a school where in 1957, the President of the United States had to send federal troops to allow 9 black children to go to school. I was 8 years old when I was watching that on the news. By being in a place like Little Rock, you had to be able to see there was a movement going on. There were big ideas being debated. And it impacted me very seriously in terms of wanting, from that time, to engage in whatever process this was, where people saw that there was something wrong and wanted to change it.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board.
I was drawn into the civil rights movement after 1960. I was one of the youngest people on the Freedom Rides. I went on to learn how to organize and worked in Mississippi after the Freedom Rides.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights.
There's no question that the civil rights movement has this impact of drawing people's attention to what's missing, and particularly the people of color.
Today, on college campuses across the country, you have students who are interested in nationalism. Nationalism is the wave of the present and the future.
Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces. My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality.
So what that does is generate this awareness, not just within the black students, but with people of color. It's like, what about me? What about us?
And when you talk about the level of militancy on the campus, there was a real reflection of it in the level of militancy and what was going on in communities across the country. Watts, Newark, Detroit.
1960 what? 1960 who? 19. Hey, the Motor City is burning. That ain't right.
In 1965, in 1966, in 1967, students from urban working class centers saw or even participated in urban violent rebellions. Because of the deteriorating conditions in these communities, they were turning away from civil rights and nonviolence. They were enticed by the growing, ever-popular rhetoric of Black power. They were connecting the war in Vietnam to their own condition. And so these Black students were coming from that very progressive and radical environment.
There was a man, voice of a people, shots rang out. Yes, it was a gun. He was the only one to fall down, y'all. That ain't right. Some folks say we gon' fight, 'cause this here thing just ain't right.
After Dr. King was killed, it was as if a boil had been ruptured.
We want black power. We want black power. We want black power. We need power just like anybody else.
Stokely Carmichael uttered the word Black Power, a term that, of course, went in today's terms viral. Stokely was speaking on campuses around the country, urging Black students to unite, telling them that Black was beautiful, telling them that they should be challenging the administration, studying their own history. You had James Brown saying, embrace yourself, be yourself.
You won't be able to do nothing unless you have a good education. Don't ever think you're down under nobody. You're just proud and keep your head up high and do what you gotta do. And always say it loud.
Some people say we got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of nerve. But I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve. We've been buked and we've been scorned.
There was the prominent Black arts movement, and you had Sonia Sanchez and Amiri Baraka writing progressive poetry.
Come out, brothers, are we with you, and your sons, your daughters are ours, and we are the same, all the blackness from one black Allah.
We wanted people to see themselves. We wanted to tell their stories. We wanted the community to use the arts as a platform for not only redefining themselves, changing within themselves, but changing their community.
Nation time, build it, get up.
I went up north. And my self-appointed mandate was to use the skills that I had acquired over 6 years of being in the movement and build a Black student movement on a predominantly white campus.
I met Jimmy somewhere around the summer and the end of 1966. I had spent a great deal of that summer of 66 out around San Francisco State. Jimmy had been part of SNCC. He knew Stokely Carmichael. He knew H. Rap Brown. All these guys included Sonia Sanchez and other people that I met. And I think for me, coming onto the campus, there was a dynamic there that kind of like just, I think, engulfed all of us.
In the fall of 1968, I transferred to San Francisco State. I wasn't expecting to be on strike, and yet there was a principle that was involved.
I had been raised with a model that my father set for 5 children. Don't talk race, assimilate. Whatever you bring to the table, if you are not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, leave it behind. Find a way to purge it out of who you are. And the question was, of course, why can't we just be who we are? And so when I went to San Francisco State, and I saw African Americans wearing afros and dashikis and calling me sister, all I knew was that it was finally my turn to live my life like I wanted to.
In 1966, Black student organizations were beginning to form around the nation. At San Francisco State, it was formed at Spring, the Black Student Union.
I remember going into the BSU office one day, and I found that they were so welcoming that I would go back on a daily basis.
Our first goal was to bring in more Black students at San Francisco State University. And we talked to Dr. Summerskill, who was president.
His thing was, that might be a good idea. Let's figure out how we could do that.
Minority students at this college, or more importantly, the minority peoples that have not been able to get in this college, I think have highly legitimate complaints. And we have just approved and announced a plan to admit 400 special students next year from minority groups.
Dr. Summerskill and the committee there allowed us to bring in special admittee students.
And so we established what was called a recruitment program. We went and found students and brought them in, sometimes kicking and screaming.
Was the first generation who ever had a chance to go to college. We had an infrastructure set up where people could tutor you once you got in. Was not gonna let you flunk out.
When we organized the BSU, we was a part of the Western Addition community organization that addressed the urban renewal. And we required our students that came through these programs to work in the communities.
It's my contention that a university has no real moral basis for existence unless it is there to refine experience in the communities at large.
We were looking at Black needs, and anybody that supports Black needs and therefore poor people's needs, we united with them.
What we wanted to do was make contacts with the Asians and the Latinos and help them build their organization.
The BSU was instrumental in influencing and helping create the Third World Liberation Front. We saw it as developing other organizations that would address their own ethnic neighborhoods the way that we was addressing the Black community.
Things were happening in Chinatown, things were happening at Fillmore and Potrero, and we knew our communities were under siege. We were the first group to go to college, and so it was up to us to take a stand and be leaders.
I had joined the Latin American Student Organization, and then through that became involved with the Third World Liberation Front group. We started out the semester simply as a student organization, but the way things escalated on the campus at that time, it quickly became something a lot more politicized and focused.
Once we got the students in, we started pressing for a Black Studies department.
The Black students knew nothing about themselves. I was in a classroom where the Black boys would go around, and I started writing names. Langston Hughes, Du Bois, Richard Wright, Marcus Garvey. And I said, who are the names you recognize? MLK and Malcolm. That was it. They didn't recognize any of the other people. Can you imagine? And I said, I got a lot of work to do.
I drafted a document called Justification for Black Studies. The whole idea was to reimagine the university as a place that actually served to prepare young people to be full participants in the world.
I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door. I'll get it myself.
They built Black Studies themselves in the experimental college, began teaching the courses that San Francisco State wasn't offering. They wanted to set up a model to the students, to the administration, to the community of what Black Studies should look like.
But the validity of a Black education was still a question mark. But we want people that were going to actually stand up, challenge the administration, and demand that we have a Black Studies department. Nathan Hare was that kind of a person.
Can you conduct classes that you think would be in the interest of the students?
We can do that.
We
can do whatever is necessary. We can do what is necessary to save the Black Studies department.
Revolution has come. Off the pig. Revolution has come. Off the pig. Time to pick up the gun. Off the pig.
The Black Panther Party were in strong support of the Black Studies Department. They had a presence on the campus on a daily basis. Brother Huey Newton and Bobby Seale used to come to the BSU office all of the time and talk to us.
Politics is all about and what our history is all about so that we can have self-identity and we can know where our strength is.
The Black Panther Party was like our older brothers, okay? And there was always a closeness between us.
But then the pushback against Black Studies consolidated. A number of things were happening. It was kind of a perfect storm. This is the time that Huey Newton had got in the shootout with the Oakland police force. It was the time when a number of our people, like George Murray, ended up joining the Black Panther Party, imitating the new militancy in the movement.
When a militant young teacher named George Murray urged Black students to carry arms in self-defense, the trustees ordered him fired.
We're going to teach regardless of the decision of the Board of Trustees or any other white races in the state of California, including all...
George Murray is a member of the Black Panther Party, and he's targeted as having to go.
Power does not lay with them to determine who's going to teach Black students and third world students here. The power is in the Black Studies Department and in the head...
The decision goes all the way up to Summerskill. He refuses to fire George. Summerskill gets fired.
This was the first full day of classes since President Smith, acting on direct orders from statewide Chancellor Glenn Dumke, suspended Murray on Friday. The reaction of the BSU came at an unusual press conference this morning at 11. BSU leaders read a list of 10 demands they're making on the college administration.
And number 10, that our brother, George Murray, be maintained his teaching position on this college campus 1968 and 1969 academic year.
I think the emphasis of the Black Power movement was if you don't give us what we want, there'll be a political consequence.
And the Third World Liberation Front.
The state had to find someone who was independent enough and egocentric enough that he was going to control this. That's Hayakawa.
Isaiah Hayakawa was a friend, came to the Black Student Union office all the time to debate with us over issues, and he changed.
I solemnly resolve to keep this college open and functioning, no matter what it takes and whom I shall have to fight.
Why are the police needed? Why do you need policemen here?
Because of you, Mr. Hare.
His whole theory was to crush the strike with force when it really needed to be negotiated.
President Hayakawa got on a loudspeaker and urged students to go home. He said anybody who wants trouble should stay, and I assured them the police would give it to them. California's Governor Reagan was in Los Angeles and was asked about it. He said he thinks Dr. Hayakawa is doing an excellent job.
There's been an attempt at appeasement and backing away from a confrontation without recognizing that these dissidents are going to keep pushing until they have that confrontation. Once they stand firm and make it plain that this kind of harassment will not be allowed. Until they do that, they're going to continue to have trouble.
S.I. Hayakawa agreed with Ronald Reagan in terms of taking a hard line. And so their opposition to many of the students' demand was a critical factor in precipitating the students' decision to go on strike in November 1968.
We had 15 demands. Initially, it was just 5. One was certainly to have a Black Studies department. Second was to increase the hiring of Black faculty and then to tenure Black faculty and to increase enrollment of Black students.
The Third World Liberation Front has voted unanimously to support the position of the Black Student Union and to participate and to encourage our people to work and participate in the strike in whatever level of involvement they are prepared to fulfill.
For the first time, for as long as I can remember, we have third world people together. We are going to stand together and do our thing.
The demands for Black studies, the demands for more faculty, the demands for ethnic studies were not met.
Is you going to up the money or not? We don't want to know nothing else. Are you going to up the money, President Hahn?
We never got acceptance in terms of our demands, and so the strikes became inevitable.
What do you think will happen next week?
What's been going on all along, man? We're going on strike.
Once the strike is going to last more than a week, this urge to contain becomes an urge to crush. This thing must be crushed. So the police is the first line. The police is going to come on the campus and first try to beat that movement to death.
When the tax squad came out, they only had one purpose. That was breaking heads and arresting people.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
The police are such a contributing factor in terms of radicalizing the students because they are totally indiscriminate in regards to who they go after.
The numbers of casualties, the level of collateral damage. Hayakawa did not care.
When the strike broke out, I was the first student arrested, and my parents never knew.
And when she was arrested, we had to get her out before it was time for her to go home. We didn't have any intentions of getting arrested and go to jail.
The day of the strike, in which we had the mass bust, where over 500 students were arrested, Governor Ronald Reagan had called the state troopers on us.
Reagan, he never came to campus, but he kept sending edicts down from Sacramento, and they were all about shut down, fire, get rid of, close down.
I believe that this is a kind of Vietnam, and this is why I am dedicated to the idea that whatever it takes, there will be no retreat, and we will win this battle at San Francisco State and keep that campus open.
It was a horrible day, but it was also a season of awakening because we realized that once again, we couldn't turn back.
The militants have been called bandits, professional agitators. You call us what you want, but we are going to continue to struggle, and we see ourselves as struggling for the generations that are here and for the generations to come.
The 5-week student strike gained momentum today as sympathetic teachers set up picket lines and threatened to join the strike. More than 100 members of the American Federation of Teachers marched in support of the student demands for greater control of college courses and faculty appointments.
So it was not a student strike, it was a student faculty strike. And then we brought in our community people. We brought in our churches. A lot of our parents had been involved in civic organizations, whether it be the unions, the Filipino Democratic Club, plus our pastors, people like Cecil Williams.
We want you to know that we are supporting the demands of the third world and the black students at this time. Demand number one, that police be immediately withdrawn from this campus. The demands of the black students and the Third World Liberation Front are not discussable, negotiable, debatable, or compromisable, and there comes a time when we stand up and say we will protect our young finest.
They didn't want their young black students beat up. And keeping in mind, these are students. These are not criminals.
What the police did was to beat the movement so badly that the community that we had been working with, those kids in the tutorial programs, and their parents, and their teachers, and their friends would come on the campus and check us out.
All right, now I'm from the ghetto community, and at the sound of my voice, when I rise up, just about the masses of Hunters Point rises up too.
Their thing was, you have helped our children, so we have to protect you.
I am supporting the Black Students Union, the World Liberation Group, 100%.
I don't think the momentum of the strike would have continued in the way in which it did had not it been for the community support around us.
So many students from other areas, UC Berkeley, San Jose State, converged on San Francisco State to support the students and to support the faculty who were pushing for a broader educational curriculum, who were pushing for more minority faculty, who were pushing for increased minority recruitment.
The same thing is happening everywhere. All students, not just black students or minority group students, want to have two things. First, more to say about the administration of their colleges and their universities, and secondly, want to make their education more important to them. So it's going to continue until students feel they have some real voice in not only their curriculum, but in the administration of their schools.
We want third world admission. Yes! We want third world professors. Yes!
There could have been a negotiated settlement on that Black Studies department at the end of the first month, at the end of the second month. By the third month, it didn't matter because the students were holding on. And so you got 4 months of struggle.
People are watching us. The pigs are watching us. Hayakawa's watching us. The world is watching us. And we're looking good.
I think that the victory, again and again, will continue to be yours. And what has begun at this college, I think, will spread throughout this country and throughout this world.
The reason why the strike came to an end was because there was a crackdown on the student leadership.
My roommate and I were arrested, and ultimately what happened is that we were jailed, and they gave me 5 to 25, or 5-year probation, as long as I didn't enter the city and county of San Francisco.
I was in jail for a year. If you do a year in jail, you don't want to go back.
There were people who did from 90 days to 6 or 7 years in prison.
So we knew at a certain point that we had to end the strike with whatever concessions we got in place.
We put together a proposal, and we want to move with it. It's time because there's a lot to be done, and that can't happen as long as the strike is going on.
After 4 months, 600 arrests, countless cracked heads and choruses of pigs off campus, the strike at San Francisco State is finally, formally over.
What we are announcing today is the culmination of work that began over 2 years ago. The Council of Academic Deans approved the implementation of Black Studies Department with full faculty power commensurate with that accorded all other departments at the college. This power includes the selection of faculty and shaping of the program. The acting chairman of the Black Studies Department will be Dr. Nathan Hare. And I shall work closely with the Senate and the faculty, as well as with my administrative colleagues, to fully realize the developments announced here today.
Compromises have to be made. You're not going to get all 15 demands, but the most essential ones were met, and that was the promise that there was going to be a Black Studies Department and that there would be a program similar for the other ethnic groups.
We knew that in the settlement, the College of Third World Studies, the School of Third World Studies was the target, was what we wanted.
It's the higher education counterpart to Brown versus the Board of Education. We said, this college is in our community. It should serve the people. It should tell our stories. We contribute, and we will be the people that make a difference.
What did we gain by the strike? What I would say is this. Look, in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and 125 universities all over the country that's just beginning.
Everybody over there, get on up. Everybody right there, get into it. Everybody over here, get involved, get involved, get involved. Wait.
National Guard troops were ordered onto the University of Wisconsin campus at Madison today.
The strikers have vowed to shut the university down until the administration meets their demands for more black students, more black teachers, and a black studies program.
100 students with similar demands occupied administrative offices at City College in New York for 5 hours today. And at the University of Chicago, a student sit-in is now in its third week.
The Brandeis Afro-American Group has stated 10 demands. One basic issue is that an Afro-American Studies Department be established.
Everybody over there, get on up. Everybody right here, get into it. Everybody over there, get involved.
The situation at Duke University was a familiar one. Black students with black demands, like special courses in the dormitory of their own, white students supporting them.
Thousands of students participated in this movement. This movement was a national social movement. In San Francisco State and Cornell were two centers.
Get involved, you get it.
As we got more students, we also got more students who were coming from a completely black environment. When I first came in, one of the other students laughingly referred to me as that little Gary, Indiana gangster girl. Well, now we had a whole lot more gangster kids. Bright as get out, but came from a whole different place.
I grew up in the New York City public housing projects. It was predominantly African American and Hispanic. Most people were just doing their day-to-day struggle and wanting more for their families. We drove up to Cornell, and the whole ride up, we're not seeing anything but cows and just lots and lots of land. And my father said, yeah, you wanted to get away from home, huh? Well, you're going away from home, all right? It's just gonna be you and the cows up here.
Lo and behold, it really was in the middle of nowhere. There was no music, we couldn't get a decent radio station. And in the engineering school, in all my classes, I was the only black person. Nobody wanted to be my lab partner. The TAs always ended up assigning somebody to be my lab partner. Only 2 other people spoke to me in my whole class. I've always been outspoken, and like certain things served me very well there, because if you were not, you get pushed aside there, literally. It's hard to describe the feeling. It's not that you're pushed aside, it's like you don't exist.
They were the first large group of blacks. They had to deal with an institution wherein the professors and the whole outlook was never geared to meet the specific needs of black students. Academia never has been.
What we felt the school ought to do was to create a better learning experience and learning environment for us, rather than just assuming, take these blacks from Bedford-Stuy, Philly, LA, put them all on this white campus and everything will be fine.
One of the things that they had said was that the black students were brought to Cornell so that the white students could learn how to get along with blacks. And I was like, oh, really?
Because I'd come there from West Point, I was kind of familiar with being the minority on a predominantly white campus. I did resent some of the rudeness, I will call it that some of the white students displayed toward me.
My roommate was from the South. She was white. She asked me where I was from, and I didn't say Brooklyn. I said, I am from Puerto Rico. And she said, oh, what's that? Where's that? And I was like, somebody doesn't know where Puerto Rico is. I mean, I don't know where I am if somebody doesn't know where I'm from.
There was an incident where we were straightening our hair, and we were doing it in the privacy of our rooms, and we were reported for smoking marijuana. because the girls in the dorm were not familiar with the odor of pressing oil and African-American hair.
There was a move towards a residence place where Black women would feel comfortable and be able to fully express themselves.
They were part of a movement. They were connected to the needs of the community, and they were connected to themselves.
When I first got to Cornell, the chair of the department at that time was Gordon Stride. I introduced myself. I'm a Woodrow Wilson Fellow, and I'm in the graduate PhD program here in the Department of Sociology. And he looked up from his desk and he said, "Can you read? Can you write? Have you ever written anything longer than a letter?"
Professors were talking about Black women, and they said Black women are known for their promiscuity, and Black women are known to have children out of wedlock and have sex at an early age. And you're like, wait a minute.
There was an economics professor there on the campus, James McPhalen. And McPhalen had gotten up in his economics class and said that Black folk had never made any significant contribution to history or the sciences or anything else.
We weren't going to take people making disparaging remarks. That's why we sat in the economics department. Every single class there didn't want the next freshman class to encounter what we had encountered. We felt very strongly about that.
Everywhere they looked, when they were not looking at each other, they saw white people and white ideas.
They got to these universities that had Eurocentric curriculums. It was an all-white curriculum. It was all-white extracurricular activities.
The idea was we're going to counter with alternative perspectives, alternative histories to make a more credible claim as to how society should be reorganized. That's what actually was the core of Black studies.
Black is you, black is me, black is us, black is free. Black is me, black is me, black is us, black is free. Black is us, black is me, black is us, black is free. Black is free.
It's important for us to know that we have distinguished people who took the world on. And you can only get that by looking at what you've done.
And that idea took hold inside the Afro-American Society, that we could try to transform this educational process to make it even more relevant to the communities that we had come from. So there were protests that had to do with building a Black Studies program on the campus.
When the Black students started protesting in favor of a Black Studies program, we were natural allies for that. The African American Society had taken a bunch of actions in December of '68 in support of a Black Studies program, and the university charged 6 of the leaders with misconduct.
The posture of the Afro-American Society was that the charges were illegitimate, and there should be no judicial proceedings at all, since there were really no Black folk involved in any significant way in the judicial process. Now, as these things were taking place all the way from the struggle around Black studies to the issue of the judicial charges that came as a result of the demonstrations to the very existence of Warry House, there grew a kind of climate of tension on the campus where these issues of race, the university was just not used to dealing with.
There was protest all over the country.
Okay, get back. Bring him into the door.
And it became evident to me that we were going to have escalating trouble here.
Word began to circulate that a cross had been burned in front of Warry House, which was the Black Women's Living Cooperative at Cornell.
It was a very frightening kind of symbol to have it at the Black women's residence.
The incident caused really bad feelings among the Blacks and the few Puerto Ricans that were here. Then we started becoming threatened.
The public in general, white public, didn't understand what a cross burning meant. You know, once the cross is burned, you're the next one to be burned.
That was the coup de grace in terms of taking us to a higher emotional level.
We didn't know exactly what we were going to do about it, but it was very clear that some kind of action was going to be taken. And in fact, we all wound up staying together as a group that night before the takeover.
The cross was burned on the yard of Warry House, was probably the precipitating event that led toward a unification of large numbers of students and a willingness to participate in the demonstration and the takeover of Willard Straight Hall.
We were all angered. We were all ready to do something.
We seized the building at 6 a.m. It was carried out in a very precision-like manner. See, we fooled everybody because they've been thinking, that we can't get up before noon and everything.
Some members went to the back doors and made sure they were locked and chained. Others went upstairs and woke parents up and said, hey, y'all, you got to leave now.
I got a call early on Saturday that there had been a takeover at Cornell, that the parents had been chased out. And I had to get over there.
I remember after we finally wound up in the straight, calling my mother. And she said, Jackie, I know you're not in that building. And I remember saying, yes, I am, Ma. There's no other place, there's nowhere else for me to be.
We knew the takeover was in process. It was basically communicated to us that you should get your people ready to do something substantial early in the morning.
We set up a picket line to be sort of a defensive group around the straight to protect the students and voice our support. We handed out leaflets saying what the demands were. We tried to do what we could to support their action.
At the time we went into the building, there were no arms involved. We thought there was no need for them, and there was certainly none that we took in.
It was going to be a classic 1960s style peaceful sit-in demonstration. That's how it started.
An alarm was sounded, passed verbally by word of mouth, that some white male students were trying to break in. By the time I got over to where the break-in occurred, it was over. Those who had tried to break in had been repelled.
There'd been some level of resentment over these active black students. They're never satisfied with anything. They complain about the classes, they complain about the dormitories, they complain about the judicial system. Now they've taken over our student union building.
The students that caused this trouble should be severely reprimanded because it is not theirs to take over the student union.
We received word that white frat boys were talking about and planning on getting their guns and coming up to the straight and chasing us out.
Every redneck within 500 miles, we coming down with it. They phoning into Willard Straight Hall.
I don't think people on the outside could realize the fear, the danger of being a small group with that massive, white, angry, mob-like attitude outside. You'd better protect yourself.
It became clear to us that for all the campus police that were involved on the outside, that one of the things they weren't effectively doing was protecting us from other folk outside of the building. And it was at this point that we decided that we would bring in some weapons for self-protection.
During the picketing early on, when I was on the stump, friends of mine pointed to the window above the straight door, and so I stopped for a moment to look, and Ed Whitfield was there holding a gun out. And he just said something like, "We appreciate your support. We've armed ourselves because of fear of an armed attack next time." That was a clear demarcation point in the sense of the stakes had just been raised substantially.
When guns were introduced into the scene, that really was like, wait a minute now, what are we doing here? I didn't sign up for that.
I'm thinking that this is getting dangerous. I am uncertain about whether or not we could be confident that people were going to exercise good judgment going forward.
Reports went out almost immediately that the black students in the building had guns.
And I'm thinking, oh boy, we're really getting into something here. Campus was just rife with rumors, wild rumors about how much violence, what was going to happen.
We had armed police and state troopers and, National Guard people, all with guns, sort of honing in on these black students.
Steve had done his own scouting mission. He told me, check this out. I just counted between 300 and 400 sheriff's deputies at the Woolworths parking lot. And he said, they were raring to come up here.
I was a raw rookie. I had no idea what was going on. A more veteran officer who was there, we were sitting in his car down in back of the straight to try to keep warm because it was freezing rain and all of that, and we were taking turns walking around the building. He actually had a gun in the car. And he said, if any of them try to come after me, he used the term, he said, I'm going to grease them.
This was a touchy situation. There were deputy sheriffs downtown, everyone well armed. There were a group of 100, however many students in the street, most of them without experience with firearms. I had a strong fear that if we went through another night, it would be the second night of the students in that building. Somebody was going to get killed.
I remember going over to a little corner in the street by myself and just saying, well, other people have given their life, so that my people could study and move forward with their lives. And if I have to sacrifice my life to move that movement forward, then that's what I'll have to do.
It was an opportunity for all of us to do something for a cause beyond ourselves and our personal interests that required us to make a sacrifice and to take a risk.
They were in a very dangerous position, and I was interested in helping them, proudly extricate themselves from a position where they might be, in my view, slaughtered. I went down into the basement, and there was a line set up for me to talk to the president of the university, Perkins. And I found that I was in a real strong negotiating posture because they didn't want bloodshed at Cornell.
There was only one goal. That was to get those students out of there before somebody got hurt. There were lots of faculty members who believed that this was an occasion that called for the police. But President Perkins backed me in my view of this.
Once the administration realized there were guns in the building, they stepped up their efforts to negotiate. I participated in those efforts, not wanting this to lead to any kind of confrontation. Some of the administrators came into the building and we had the discussion. Basically, their thing was, what is it we can agree to do as quickly as possible so you all leave?
Ed said, well, they want us to leave our guns inside the building. Absolutely not. There was a sense of wanting to make a statement to the university that we didn't come in armed. We had to arm ourselves because of an external threat. To our knowledge, that threat was still outside, so we were going to leave armed.
As young people who had not seen a gun or handled one before, for them to make the personal decision to carry a gun out of that building has to be seen in the broader context of the right of Black people to protect themselves against racial violence and racial terror.
We positioned the people with guns in the front, rear, and a few interspersed on the sides. And brothers who didn't have guns at that point Some of them got pool cues and taped knives to the end of the pool cues to make spears.
Finally, what we ended up with is like, look, we came in through the front door. We're gonna leave through the front door. And we don't want you to walk out in front of us looking like you being held hostage to us. We want you to walk out alongside of us. And they finally reluctantly agreed to this. We lined up there at the front door of the building. The doors finally unlocked, swung open, and we walk out.
I was just in the best spot, so I got the moment.
You know, I think I gasped at the sight of, guys carrying rifles with bandoleros.
I didn't think about the possible consequences of surprising a throng of people outside of a university building and seeing armed students walking out.
I had anticipated the angry backlash that we'd gotten from the white boys who had tried to break into the building.
It was a very tense moment. One of the things I remember about those doors flying open and seeing this large number of people out in front was that I was glad nobody out there had a firecracker. And I was surprised to see this throng of students. I had no idea that that much attention was being paid to what we were doing inside the building. We walked out marching toward 320 Wade Avenue with the administrators along the side of us, Eric and I in the front.
It was eerily quiet. I just remember our walking across, not saying anything to each other.
Everybody gathered there on the front steps of the building that was to house the Black Studies program for a brief period of time, where some of the final papers that reflected what it was we had agreed to in the building were signed. We felt much closer to achieving the goals that we had entered the building struggling for. We felt closer to there being a Black Studies program. We felt that people would take us much more seriously with much of anything that we would raise.
The thing that I was fighting for was an Africana Studies Center to create a broader scope to the type of knowledge that was taking place at the university. I felt a sense of pride that I had stood with my peers and stood up for something that we believed in.
We had very, very close relationships with the Puerto Rican brothers and sisters on the campus. We were one.
I felt strong. At that moment, I don't think I saw myself as a Puerto Rican. I felt like this is a struggle that I identify with.
We wanted to make sure that we followed through with what we did. This sense of integrity of wanting to make sure that, our words matched our deeds was something that was very important to us.
The image of the students coming out of Willis Strait Hall shattered the notion that somehow academia was insulated from the realities in the broader society.
When we saw that picture, we high-fived because students were now finding their voice. East Coast, West Coast, it was a proud moment.
That next day, people in suburban America, rural America, people all over the world saw these Ivy League Black students walking out of a campus building bearing arms.
If you are to look at how it was framed in the newspapers, it's Black students running amok, disruption and discord in our colleges and universities. That was the headline.
If it had not been for that photograph, Cornell would probably have gone down in history as an institution that had modest troubles, but nothing overwhelming. The photo changed everything.
The faculty began to gather during the light of dusk.
called to debate and vote on some of the crucial issues raised by this weekend's occupation of a campus building by a band of armed Negro students. The meeting was closed, discussion heated. It lasted 4 hours. When the 1,100 educators streamed out of Bailey Hall, they had adopted 8 resolutions and had rebuffed President James Perkins on one issue that was central to the agreement which ended the weekend demonstration.
There was some conflict among the university administration and faculty over the issue of the amnesty.
I think the administration by that time was committed to setting up a Black Studies department. They had agreed that James Turner would be the executive director of it, and I think they would have been very happy if those charges from those December actions had just gone away. But there was some faculty who said, no, they violated procedures, they violated campus rules, they must be prosecuted.
Fight racism! Meet the black demands now! Fight racism!
The night was not without demonstrations. SDS took a vote of no confidence in the faculty, followed by a resolution which promised continued support of demands made during the past weekend by black radicals.
There was a huge convocation that was called in Barton Hall, where thousands of students on the campus, black and white students, gathered together to talk about this new experiment in education that involves larger numbers of black students coming here on this campus and being a part of the campus.
There were massive teach-ins because all of a sudden, white students all across the campus wanted to know, what was this all about?
I mean, negative was the first impression because, hey, they're on our campus with guns. But when the dialogue started, you could see that that changed his desire to understand more. And many spoke out in favor of what the black students were doing.
I'd like to say that I hope the faculty today decides to support the blacks, because if they don't, I think they're using very bad policy.
At noon today, the faculty began to gather on campus. It was the second faculty meeting this week, and the word finally came. It was to be compromised. The faculty had rescinded the penalties.
Quite to the contrary of what we might normally expect, the faculty were not the progressives. The progressives were in the administration, even if it was by necessity.
Perkins saw what had happened as a new approach, not surrender.
It is reasonably clear that the social revolution in which this country and the rest of the world is involved has changed that game. All parts of the community, trustees and administration and faculty and students, are now concerned with all matters.
This was kind of a journey that we took with the university. You know, we were kind of leading, in some respects, the conversation about the relationship between African American students and the university.
This meeting is probably one of the most constructive, positive forces that have been set in motion in the history of Cornell.
I think leadership at the university probably paid a dear personal price for believing that establishing a dialogue with students during this very tense encounter was the right thing to do.
Some of the misguided alumni of Cornell took what Mr. Perkins did as a capitulation to black students who had gone wild, and therefore he was weak. He had to go. So he was punished for averting a bloodshed at Cornell. If those alumni who forced his firing understood what was going on there, they would have understood that the reputation of Cornell would have been sullied beyond repair if Mr. Perkins hadn't done what he so wisely did.
There are those who have wanted to see this issue of the Willard Strait and the subsequent events as really confined to Cornell. And they fail to see the larger historic context for this. There was a broad movement going on in the country against segregation and racial isolation and exclusion in America. And there was a broad movement to democratize American education, to make American education face up to the value of education for all.
When African American students broke that mold, it was broken for everybody, and other people could step in and say, well, that's absolutely right. To be able to think about yourself and your community and your ancestors makes you feel like you belong.
I found my voice at San Francisco State, and I realized how liberating it was.
There is not a day in which the determination, the lack of apology, the sense of certainty that I can achieve that which I set out to do is not, in fact, informed by how I survived San Francisco State.
That point in history codified something, symbolized something in my life in terms of choices that I make in life, choices that I make as a citizen, and choices that I make as an artist.
My involvement in the straight takeover was probably the defining moment of my life. And in all the jobs that I've had, what I am and what I brought to those jobs started at Cornell.
I'm really appreciative of having been there at that time to do, along with a lot of other people, something that was nurturing, intense, and smart.
I'm nearly 60 years old now, and I don't necessarily harbor any illusion that all of the problems that I'd like to see corrected will be corrected in my lifetime, but I'll spend my life trying. There are things that people understand now that were at issue 40 years ago. So these students are starting in a different place, in some sense standing on the shoulders of the folk who did work in the years before, but they're confronting new realities that are incredibly challenging.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back! Black studies is under attack!
So what we wanted to do today is just come out and show the faculty and show the administration that we're not going to stand for this as students.
Why do I have to learn my history through white men? If we're going to be talking about black people, it needs to be black people talking about black people.
Yeah,
A lot of young people, I think, are growing up in a world where they are confronted with the fact that they have a responsibility to engage in changing the world. Many of them are taking that very, very seriously. And I think that's a great sign for the future.
From San Francisco to New York, holding fast to their dreams, students unite for a cause, stand up for what they believe. Their voice is the solution. They had demands to arrange. It's an education revolution, and they are agents of change.
Can't breathe, got my hands up. 12-year-olds won't get to grow up. Can't man up, even woman up. Lost another son, bullet thought he wasn't good enough. People fed up in the crosshairs. Be aware, cause both sides scared. Beware, so I keep these hands in the air. Not good when you're breathing in fear. aware, hands way up in the air. Be aware and beware. Never a good thing when you're breathing in fear. Can't breathe, don't smoke, he's a bear. Hands way up in the air. Be aware and beware. Never a good thing when you're breathing in fear. Never a good thing when you're breathing in fear.